Kia ora, good evening. I'm Hannah Wilkins. Plumes of thick black smoke over central Invercargill sparked a major fire call-out last week.
Fire and Emergency New Zealand say 4 fire appliances have been attending the blaze on Camden Street. Some streets around Turnbull Thompson Park have been closed while crews battled the fire, which initially threatened neighbouring structures. Crew at the scene identified a pile of rubber as the source of the blaze, while another witness said the fire may have involved old hockey turf. Fens say foam spray is being used to help suppress the fire, which as of Friday afternoon was not at risk of spreading.
And unfortunately, a quick emergency call from a neighbour wasn't enough to stop a fast-moving house fire from destroying a home in Palmerston on Thursday.
A quick emergency call from a neighbour wasn't enough to stop a fast-moving house fire from destroying a home in Palmerston yesterday. The blaze broke out on Stronsa Street in the early afternoon. Smoke alarms alerted neighbours who called emergency services. 5 crews from around the region battled the flames, but the house was not able to be saved.
And we managed to knock the fire down reasonably quickly, but as you can see, the house unfortunately is a write-off, and one half is completely burnt out, the other half has got a huge amount of smoke damage.
Emergency services confirmed the occupants were not home when the house was destroyed, but locals at the scene reported that 2 family pets were killed in the blaze. In Palmerston, the South Today.
Hundreds of Cantabrians have turned out in Christchurch this week to try and catch a glimpse of Princess Anne during her brief South Island visit. Her Royal Highness rededicated the restored Citizens' War Memorial and also visited the Canterbury Agricultural Park.
Pomp and ceremony as Her Royal Highness Princess Anne arrives in Cathedral Square. A crowd of Cantabrians, both young and old, gathered in the area with the hopes of catching a glimpse of the Princess Royal. She was tasked with rededicating the Citizens' War Memorial, which has been reinstated after 2 years of restoration work.
Today marks a major step forward in our city's journey to recover from the earthquakes of 2010 and 2011.
Princess Anne arrived in Wellington on Wednesday morning, visiting the National Crisis Management Centre at the Beehive, where she spoke to staff involved in the response to Cyclone Gabriel. The severe weather events forced the Royal to scale back her planned schedule, but still allowed time to visit the Garden City. Her Royal Highness was briefed about progress around the Christchurch rebuild and was shown around the cathedral where restoration work is underway. Princess Anne also unveiled a plaque and laid the first wreath on the reinstated War Memorial.
The rededication of the Citizens' War Memorial in the presence of Her Royal Highness today will once again provide a place where all of us may come, remember and reflect on the sacrifices made by the men and women of New Zealand in service of their country.
The royal visit to Christchurch was the last stop of Princess Anne's New Zealand visit. In Christchurch, the South Today.
The return of tourists has been welcomed by many operators across central Otago after a few difficult years. It's also been boom time at Queenstown Airport, which is preparing to pay its biggest ever dividend to the local council.
It's a busy airport now the tourists are back in the country. And the bustling Queenstown Airport is not only getting people to and from their holiday destinations, it's also giving back to local residents. Queenstown Airport has announced the largest dividend payout in its history, of almost $6 million. That will mean $4.5 million going to its largest shareholder, the Queenstown Lakes District Council, which Airport CEO Glenn Sowry says equates to $300 for every ratepayer.
And so that gives us the opportunity to pay our shareholders, which of course is the majority owned by the local council, QLDC, the strongest ever interim dividend we've paid in the airport's history.
Auckland International Airport owns the other quarter of the business. The big payout comes after Queenstown Airport's board of directors decided to pay out 70% of net profits in dividends back to their shareholders. Sowry says the healthy result is thanks to a strong bounce back for international tourism in the resort town, including demand from Australians coming here for ski holidays.
But what we've seen is a really strong recovery post-COVID. We've seen particularly strong passenger numbers out of Australia, which is very encouraging.
And while domestic flights are taking longer to bounce back, both Air New Zealand and Jetstar have solid flight schedules leading into the winter season. Salary's forecasting that it will allow the airport company to double the dividends it pays to shareholders at the end of the financial year. In Queenstown, the South Today.
Dangerous buildings leaning over a central Dunedin footpath now look set to be demolished based on a new engineering review. The Victorian shop fronts on Princes Street have been at the centre of a long-running dispute over heritage values.
This drone footage shows the extent of damage hiding behind the facades along Dunedin's Princes Street. The area was once a major shopping strip but is now described by critics as an example of demolition by neglect. The Dunedin City Council declared these Gold Rush era stores unsafe in 2008, and since then they've mostly remained vacant. The DCC wanted to try and keep the heritage facades, but that looks set to change following the review of an engineering report commissioned by the building's owners. It's understood developers are now in the process of applying for consent to demolish the shops. Demolition started on a block of similarly neglected historic buildings on nearby Rattray Street earlier in the week. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Rural landowners in Dunedin may soon be paying more for road maintenance, as they could be asked to share the cost for suppressing dust on unsealed roads.
The cost for dust suppression on gravel roads has increased steadily since the Dunedin City Council phased out the use of recycled motor oil in 2020. The DCC want to roll out a new treatment, but the projected cost has grown by over $400,000. This week, councils considered a plan change that would see ratepayers who apply for dust suppression splitting the cost with the council.
I think any existing residents could be very disappointed if they had to pay for the dust suppression when they've paid in their rates all these years.
Community board members representing rural communities were divided on the proposal. The DCC believes the new sealing treatment will offer longer lasting protection, but some community boards were in favour of a more permanent tar seal. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek. Locals down south have been doing their part for Ukraine, raising money through endurance walks and artwork. And Dunedin's O Week got into full swing, leaving students amped after having a hiatus last year. Tēnā koe, welcome back. Airspace was tight in the skies over Hanmer last weekend as the characteristic drone of the Hughes 500 helicopter buzzed around the district. But unknown to visitors to the scenic North Canterbury site, it was all part of a get-together for pilots and operators of this iconic helicopter.
The skies above Hanmer echoed to the distinctive drone of Hughes 500 helicopters. Large numbers of these iconic helicopters flew in and out of the scenic Hanmer Springs area over the weekend. The choppers were landing in a paddock owned by Bill Howells, who runs Alpine Springs Helicopters. He says it all came about through a simple question.
I had a friend who flies a 180 and they had a 180 flying, and I was laying in bed about 2 o'clock one morning and I thought, I wonder how many 500s we could get in the paddock. And it snowballed.
He spoke to a few guys who thought it could work. They spread the word, with pilots coming from around the country, with the exception of those busy up north working on flood relief efforts. A total of 63 Hughes, McDonnell Douglas, MD helicopters made the journey to attend the great Kiwi 500 fly-in, all keen to meet others and hear what the future of the industry was looking like. Hales, who has been flying for 45 years, was proud to see a lot of New Zealand's aviation history on the ground there in the North Canterbury township.
These 500s were made for New Zealand mountains. Originally they went to Vietnam, but hell, they should have come straight to New Zealand. And they're an iconic machine. Nothing makes a noise like these things. People don't like it, but a lot of us love it.
The pilots, operators and former game shooters all met for an evening of tall tales and networking, sharing adventures along with memories of old friends who didn't make it home. In Hanmer, the South Today.
An Invercargill nursing student with a passion for the outdoors is tackling an ambitious endurance walk for charity.
Sturdy footwear is recommended for this walk as Hanny Hopsu plans to make a marathon 24-hour hike around Bluffs Loop track. She's making the trip to help raise money for the Kiwi Care aid organisation in Ukraine, and she's encouraging supporters to join her for some company.
So there's an open invitation for people to come and join me for a lap, which would be amazing. So any people living around Invercargill, I'd love to walk with people. So depending on the pace, it'll be about 1.5 hours to 2.5 hours. So roughly probably about 10 laps in the 24 hours.
The keen tramper's originally from Finland and says the Ukraine invasion came as a huge shock to people in her homeland. The country shares a border with Russia. Hopsu plans to start her walk at 10 a.m. next Friday to mark the 1-year anniversary of the invasion. In Invercargill, the South Today.
Also, a Dunedin man has paid tribute to those suffering in Ukraine by creating a military-inspired work of art with a message of hope.
This blue and yellow creation isn't the kind of hedgehog that sits around in your garden, it's the type that stops tanks. Creator Laurie Forbes was inspired to create the tribute after seeing thousands of similar installations dotted around Ukraine, with a place to help keep Russian guns at bay. The artwork is painted with the country's colours, with both sides plastered with inspirational quotes. One side reads, "Liberty is not sold for all the gold in the world," with the other side imprinted with a popular Ukrainian saying.
And it says Slava Ukraini, which is glory to Ukraine, which is something that Ukrainian people say to each other and have done so for 100 years.
He started the project last month and has finished it just in time for the anniversary of the invasion tomorrow. The hedgehog will be on display in Vogel Street until it is sold at auction, with all proceeds going to the Red Cross in Ukraine. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A huge week of triathlon racing drew to a close last weekend as Challenge Wanaka athletes headed for Glendhu Bay for the Sporting Festival's finale. The event caters for everyone from juniors through to international elite competitors, and a new race layout saw fierce racing right through the centre of town.
Tired arms and pumping legs, the Twilight Elite race passes through the Wanaka Township, delighting spectators. The sprint version of the triathlon is just one of 13 variations on offer for competitors in the Challenge Wanaka Sporting Festival. Nearly 1,000 competitors took part over the multi-day event, which enjoys huge support from local athletes. The event also attracts a strong international field, including Aviv Levi from Israel, who placed 9th in the elite sprint.
I'm very happy to do with the top 10, and I'm very happy for all the hard work.
On Saturday, competitors moved to Glendhu Bay for the popular half marathon and duathlon events. Race organisers also encouraged school kids and entry-level triathletes to have a go in specially tailored challenges.
We have the largest secondary schools event in New Zealand. Now, so it shows our junior challenge is working its way through into secondary schools, so the more kids we get into sport, the better. Yeah.
The meet-up is part of an international circuit of challenge triathlons, with the top competitors vying for valuable Olympic qualification points. In Wanaka, the South Today.
Orientation Week got underway at tertiary institutions across the country this week. Dunedin's new intake of freshers were welcomed with the familiar tent city at the Museum Reserve, with one stall encouraging a safer way to party.
Dunedin students packed in line this week at Tent City, trying to grab some freebies and discount deals. Freshers have flocked in their thousands to the Otago Museum Reserve as O-Week events began across North Dunedin. Students, new and returning, were able to grab some good deals and giveaways from local businesses, learn more about university life, or even just freshen up their look before classes begin.
A bunch of businesses and organisations and OUSA coming down to show them what they've got, show all the freshers, the first years at Otago, what we're all about.
Police also had a presence there in preparation for the expected week of energetic partying. Officers are encouraging safe partying and promoting their website Good One, where people can register their parties to let police know what's going on.
Which basically enables students to register their parties with Good One, which then notifies police, and we can catch up with them early on to provide them with some great information around how to have a safe and lawful party and just enjoy themselves really.
Tent City is set to finish up on Wednesday afternoon as the rest of Ori 23 winds up, with the popular Toga Party kicking off a series of concerts through to the weekend. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Continuing on with the O-Week celebrations, a Dunedin downpour wasn't enough to deter first-year students away from their night of partying. The infamous Toga Party made its return earlier this week with a change-up in venue and safety measures put in place to ensure everyone has a good time.
Freshers flooding into the Union Hall grounds, buzzing with anticipation and eager to kick off their Roman-themed party. The Otago University Students Association and partygoers were excited yesterday for the return of the Toga Party and didn't let the rain dampen their mood. The O-Week event was held on the Union Hall lawn for the first time, hosting a two-stage setup with an inside option for those who didn't want to get too wet.
It means people can mix and mingle, go inside if they want to avoid the cold, stay out here, different bands, different vibes, can cruise around and it's a bit more of a festival.
Lots of security was on hand for the event, along with student volunteer groups. OUSA's Are You OK were around to help the students whose nights weren't going the way they had hoped.
Help you get home if you need to go home, provide you with food, water, comfy place to sit. It's lots of support. It's here to provide a safe environment for students to enjoy themselves when they get back to uni.
Last night kicked off the headline Ori 23 concert series that will continue on into the weekend. Now students will need to brush off their hangovers, with international DJ Netsky set to play tonight. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek. A Dunedin Golf Club's rebuild is underway after a devastating fire tore through the landmark 2 years ago. And hundreds of people ventured up a Queenstown ski field, enjoying the sun instead of the snow. Tēnā koe, welcome back. Building work is well underway on replacement club rooms for the Balnolls golf course after fire completely destroyed the Dunedin landmark in 2021. It's hoped the golf club can throw open the new doors later this year, but a final funding drive may still be needed to hit the target.
Almost a century of Dunedin golfing history lost to the flames. But a replacement for the Balnolls golf club rooms is quickly rising from the ashes. The original two-storey building was destroyed by fire in 2021. But building contractors are racing to complete work on the new venue in time for the club's centenary celebrations in October. And while the rebuild's progressing well, club bosses are warning there's still some uncertainty around the fit-out.
We missed out on a major grant, but that isn't an issue. We can still build it, but we can't furnish it. And so we're about 100,000 short in furnishings.
Insurance will cover the costs of demolition and rebuilding, but the Dunedin Club is relying on members to help restore some lost history.
A fair percentage of the trophies were sitting in members' homes, so they were still there. And we have replaced some of those, but the honours boards, those things still have to be replaced, and that will happen once we've got funds.
The replacement build has adopted a single-storey design to help keep within budget, but careful design is set to see more space available overall. Contractors are confident of completing construction work in June. In Dunedin, the South Today.
More than 400 people visited Coronet Peak ski field for a beer and food festival last weekend. The mountain becomes a mecca for skiers every winter, but this year they're making the most of the summer season as well.
There's no snow on these slopes, but spectacular views and plenty of outdoor space greeted visitors to the Coronet Peak Craft Beer and Barbecue Summit on Saturday. 11 craft brewers came from around New Zealand to pour pints on the mountain. Coronet Peak say swapping ski goggles for beer glasses worked out well, despite a few challenges from the weather.
A bit of drama getting some of the North Island ones down with all the weather and everything going on, but they made it, so stoked that they could. We've also got, 4 different food vendors as well from all over the South Island, doing different barbecues.
Summer access to the slopes is proving popular with mountain bikers, but organisers were mindful of the challenging road access.
Yeah, we had a good day out here. Bus was included, so a lot of people nice and safe getting up here and safe getting down and having a good time.
The summit is part of a series of summer events planned to make the most of the good weather. Upcoming dates on the ski field include the National Mountain Biking Championships and a music festival. In Queenstown, the South Today.
Orientation Week saw first-year students living in the halls hitting Logan Park for an afternoon of friendly rivalry. The annual Unipol College Sports Day saw freshers going head-to-head in different challenges, with one event sticking out from the rest.
Cheers roaring through North Dunedin as new Otago University students cheer on their peers during an intense game of leapfrog. It was part of the annual Unipol College Sports Day at Logan Park yesterday, where first-year students compete alongside new friends as part of teams from student colleges or the uni flats. Around 4,000 students took part in the afternoon of social sports as they turned their sporting rivalries into friendships.
There is big rivalry, but it's also a really good day to just sort of get to meet everyone in your college. It's a really good way of breaking down barriers and things like that. So it's generally a very positive sort of day.
The biggest event of the day was the tug of war, with Studham College narrowly beating Aquinas College in the final after a long-fought battle. Students cheered on as the two teams went at it, with sound of their hall chants echoing through the grounds.
It's a real cool feeling hearing them all shouting and cheering, especially after last year where we weren't able to have this event. So it's a really good feeling.
O-Week celebrations continue through to the weekend, with the popular Toga Party kicking off a lineup of concerts, including international DJ Netsky tomorrow night. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Gore residents got to enjoy displays of some of the colourful flowers the town has to offer recently. The Gore Garden Club Harvest saw florists showing off their best work and competing for the top prize, with a special guest making an appearance.
The smell of fresh flowers and baked goods filling the room at the Gore Town and Country Club. This was the scene of the Gore Garden Club Harvest, spanning 2 days late last week and following a theme of the good, the bad and the ugly. Publicity officer Noreen Thomas was impressed with the entries this year after a tough season due to the weather.
The gladdies are really, really good, and it's amazing to still have lilies at this time of the year and after all the conditions.
TV presenter Rud Kleinpass put on a bug show during the event for all the kids, ensuring there was something the whole family could enjoy. But others, including Gore Mayor Ben Bell, were keen to enjoy the beauty on display throughout the hall.
And very colourful. There's a lot of kids here today, which is fantastic. And I'm really enjoying looking at all the flowers and fruit and vegetable. It's a lot of fun actually.
The champion cut flower was taken home by Gore local Amy Ritchie for her hydrangea paniculata limelight, while Jill Youngson won the baking section for this curiously realistic looking cauliflower cake. In Gore, the South Today.
That wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news and videos from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz. And you can follow Channel 39 on YouTube to catch our news bulletins on demand. We'll see you again next week. Mā te wā.
Public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air.